I watched my mother's hand tremble as she signed the document. Her fingers, once so steady when she used to braid my hair or knead bread dough, now shook with uncertainty. The pen scratched across the paper, leaving a wavering signature that barely resembled her name. My sister, Victoria, stood beside her, one hand resting on Mom's shoulder in what looked like comfort but felt like control. "There you go, Mom," Victoria said, her voice sweet as honey. "All done." She folded the papers quickly, too quickly, and slid them into her leather portfolio before I could see what they said. I was standing in the doorway of Mom's small living room, still holding the tray of afternoon tea I'd just prepared. Something felt wrong. The air felt heavy, charged with a tension I couldn't name. I moved closer, setting the tray on the coffee table. "What was that about?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. Victoria smiled at me, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Just some estate planning stuff, Carol. Nothing for you to worry about." I glanced at the papers disappearing into her bag, then at Mom's face. She looked tired, confused, maybe even relieved that it was over. But when I scanned the visible portions of the document still on the table, I noticed something strange. My name was nowhere on the page. The smell of antiseptic cream and lavender filled the house. It always did now. Mom's medications lined the kitchen counter in neat rows, each bottle labeled with careful instructions I'd written myself. The clock ticked steadily in the hallway, marking time in a life that had become routine. I woke at 6 every morning to help Mom with her breakfast. Oatmeal with blueberries, exactly how she liked it. Then her pills, blood pressure, cholesterol, the small white one for her heart. I'd help her dress, brush her silver hair, guide her to her favorite chair by the window where she could watch the birds. Lunch was at noon. Dinner at 6. Between those anchors, I cleaned, cooked, did laundry, paid bills, scheduled doctor's appointments, and listened. Mostly, I listened. Mom told me the same stories she'd told 100 times before, about Dad, about her childhood, about the house she'd grown up in. I never interrupted. I never showed impatience. "You're my steady one," she'd say sometimes, patting my hand. "Always have been." Victoria visited once, maybe twice a week. She'd breeze in wearing expensive perfume, kiss Mom's cheek, ask how she was feeling, and then disappear into the small home office Dad had built years ago. She always had paperwork. Always had something that needed signing. And I never questioned it. Not then. One afternoon, while sorting through mail, I found a letter from the bank. It mentioned something about asset transfers and account modifications. My stomach clenched. I'd been managing Mom's checkbook for months, making sure bills were paid, groceries were bought, prescriptions filled. But this letter referenced accounts I didn't recognize. I waited until Victoria's next visit. She arrived on a Wednesday, her heels clicking against the hardwood floors, looking polished and professional as always. I caught her in the hallway, letter in hand. "Vic, what's this about?" I asked gently, showing her the envelope. She barely glanced at it before laughing, a light, dismissive sound. "Oh, Carol, don't worry about that. I'm just organizing Mom's finances properly. You know how messy things got after Dad died. I'm making sure everything's protected." "Protected from what?" Her expression shifted slightly, a flash of something sharp behind her smile. "From confusion. From mistakes. From people who might take advantage. Why are you being so suspicious?" The word stung. Suspicious. Like I was the one doing something wrong. "I'm not suspicious," I said quietly. "I just want to understand." "Then trust me," she replied, her tone cooling. "You take care of Mom's daily needs. I handle the important stuff. That's how this works." I looked past her to where Mom sat in her chair, staring out the window. She hadn't looked at either of us during the exchange. Her eyes stayed fixed on something far away. The letter arrived on a grey Tuesday morning. Official letterhead, heavy paper, words that made my heart sink. The family home, the house where I'd grown up, where Mom had lived for 40 years, where Dad had planted roses in the garden, was no longer in her name. It was legally owned by Victoria. I read the notice 3 times, hoping I'd misunderstood. But the language was clear. The property had been transferred 6 months ago. 6 months. Long before I'd started noticing strange documents. Long before I'd begun to question anything. I felt like the floor was tilting beneath me. This wasn't temporary. This wasn't some financial strategy one didn't understand. This was permanent. Mom was in her room napping when Victoria stopped by that evening. I showed her the letter, my hand shaking slightly. The house. I said. You took the house. She sighed, setting down her purse. I didn't take anything, Carol. I'm protecting Mom's assets. If she ever needs long-term care, having the house in my name protects it from being seized. It's perfectly legal. But why didn't anyone tell me? Because you'd react exactly like this, she said, gesturing at me. Getting emotional instead of thinking logically. She moved toward the door, then paused. There are more changes coming, she added casually. Mom needs proper management of her affairs. I'm making sure she's taken care of. Then she left. And I stood there, holding a letter that proved I had no legal claim to anything. Not even the roof over my head. My friend Marcus urged me to confront her. She's stealing from your mother, he said over coffee one Saturday. You need to expose this before it's too late. But I couldn't. Not yet. Every time I thought about confronting Victoria publicly, I imagined Mom caught in the middle. She was fragile now, easily confused, deeply sensitive to conflict. If I started a family war, she'd be the one who suffered. I need to protect Mom's peace, I told Marcus. If I blow this up now, it'll destroy her. And if you don't, he countered. What then? I didn't have an answer. I just knew that kindness had to matter. That being right wasn't worth breaking my mother's heart. Marcus shook his head but didn't push further. As we left the cafe, I noticed someone sitting on a bench across the street. An older man in a plain grey coat, reading a newspaper. Something about the way he glanced up when we passed made me pause. But then Marcus was talking again, and I forgot about it. What I didn't know was that someone nearby had been quietly listening. Not just to that conversation. To everything. I saw him again 2 weeks later. The same man from the bench. I was at the pharmacy picking up Mom's prescriptions when I noticed him standing near the magazine rack. Plain coat, silver hair, observant eyes that seemed to take in everything without appearing to stare. He approached me while I was waiting at the counter. Excuse me, he said politely. You're Alice's daughter, aren't you? I blinked, surprised. Yes. Do I know you? No, he said simply. But I know about caregiving. It's harder than people think. There was something gentle in his voice, something that made me feel seen in a way I hadn't in months. It is, I admitted. We stood there for a moment in comfortable silence. Then he asked a question that felt strange, almost out of place. Who does the paperwork? I frowned, confused. What do you mean? But he was already turning away, heading toward the door. Wait, I called after him. What are you asking? He paused at the exit, looked back at me with those calm, knowing eyes, and said, just something to think about. Then he was gone. I stood there holding Mom's medications, his question echoing in my mind. Who does the paperwork trust? What kind of question was that? And why did it feel like he already knew the answer? Over the next few months, things accelerated. Victoria began selling assets, small things at first. Dad's old truck, which had been sitting in the garage. Some antique furniture from the guest bedroom. A collection of rare books Dad had treasured. Each time, she had an explanation. Mom doesn't need these anymore. The money will help with expenses. It's necessary. But I noticed something that made my chest tighten. Mom had no access to her own accounts. When I tried to use her debit card at the grocery store one day, it was declined. I called the bank from the parking lot. I'm sorry, the representative said. That account has been closed. Mrs. Alice Sullivan no longer has any active accounts under her name. What? My voice came out sharper than I intended. Where did the money go? I can't discuss that without proper authorization. When I got home, I asked Mom about it. She looked at me with confused, watery eyes. Victoria handles all that now, she said softly. She says it's safer this way. That evening, Victoria stopped by to drop off some papers. I watched as she slid another document into her leather bag, one I hadn't even seen Mom sign. She caught me looking. Something wrong? She asked coolly. I wanted to scream. I wanted to demand answers. But all I said was, no. Nothing's wrong. The lie tasted bitter on my tongue. One quiet afternoon, while I was helping Mom sort through old photo albums, she suddenly gripped my hand. Carol, she whispered, her eyes more focused than I'd seen them in weeks. I need you to keep something safe for me. She reached under her chair cushion and pulled out a small notebook, worn, leather-bound, filled with her handwriting. Don't let Victoria see this, she said urgently. Promise me. I promise, I said, my heart racing. What is it? Just keep it safe. You'll understand when you need to. She squeezed my hand once more, then seemed to drift back into her usual distant state, as if the moment of clarity had exhausted her. That night, after Mom was asleep, I opened the notebook. The pages were filled with her thoughts, scattered, sometimes repetitive, but revealing. She wrote about fairness. About fear. About not knowing who to trust when your mind starts to fail you. And on one page, underlined 3 times, was a single word, failsafe. Beneath it, she'd written, I trust the one who asks for nothing. I read that line over and over, my hands trembling. What did it mean? What had Mom set in motion before her mind began to fade? And why did I feel like I was standing on the edge of something much bigger than I understood? Mrs. Chen from next door mentioned it casually while I was taking out the trash. Funny thing, she said, pruning her roses. There were some official-looking people asking questions around the neighborhood last week. I paused, trash bag in hand. Official. Like police. No. More like government people. Asking about your mother, about who takes care of her, who visits. I thought maybe it was for some benefit program or something. My stomach dropped. What did you tell them? She shrugged. The truth. That you're here every day. That your sister visits sometimes but you do all the actual work. I thanked her and hurried back inside, my mind racing. Surely it was just coincidence. Maybe social services did random wellness checks. Maybe it was nothing. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was shifting, that invisible gears were turning somewhere beyond my sight. That evening, Victoria showed up unexpectedly. She was in the kitchen getting water when Mrs. Chen's voice drifted through the open window, still chatting with another neighbor about those officials. Victoria froze. Her entire body went rigid. When she turned to face me, her expression was different. Guarded. Almost afraid. Have you been talking to anyone? She demanded. About what? About Mom. About the finances. About anything. No, I said honestly. Why would I? But she didn't look convinced. And for the first time, I saw something in her eyes that looked like genuine fear. Victoria's behavior changed overnight. She became tense, guarded, constantly checking her phone. She'd snap at Mom over nothing, then apologize with a forced smile. She started showing up at odd hours, going through papers in Dad's old office, making hushed phone calls in the hallway. One morning, she cornered me in the kitchen. Have you been talking to anyone about our family business? Her voice was sharp, accusatory. What? No. I already told you. Someone's been asking questions, Carol. And I need to know if you've been running your mouth. I felt anger rise in my chest. I haven't said anything to anyone. I don't even know what's going on half the time because you keep me in the dark. That's not true. Isn't it? I found out about the house from a bank letter. I found out Mom's accounts were closed when her card got declined at the grocery store. You tell me nothing, then accuse me of talking. Victoria's face flushed. I'm protecting this family. Someone has to actually be responsible here. By cutting me out. By making decisions without telling anyone. By doing what needs to be done, she shouted. Then, suddenly, there was a soft thud from the other room. We both ran. Mom had collapsed. Not unconscious, but on her knees, hands over her ears, tears streaming down her face. "Stop fighting," she whispered. "Please stop fighting." The envelope arrived 3 days later. Heavy, cream-colored paper with an official crest embossed in the corner. It was addressed to Victoria Sullivan. I was carrying in groceries when I saw her standing in the driveway, staring at the unopened envelope in her hands. Her face was pale. "What is it?" I asked. She looked up at me like she'd forgotten I was there. "Nothing. It's nothing." But I could see the words through the thin envelope: tax inquiry and financial review. Victoria's hands were shaking. She shoved the envelope into her purse and walked quickly toward her car. "Wait, Victoria, I have to go," she said, her voice tight. "I'll call you later." She didn't call. Not that day. Not the next. When she finally showed up 4 days later, she looked like she hadn't slept. Her makeup couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes. Her usually perfect hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. She went straight to Dad's office and slammed the door. I could hear her on the phone, her voice rising and falling in urgent, desperate tones. I pressed my ear to the door but could only catch fragments. I didn't know. "They're looking at everything. How did they even?" When she finally emerged 2 hours later, she wouldn't look at me. She just grabbed her coat and left. The door closed behind her with a hollow, final sound. It happened on a Sunday morning. I was making breakfast when Victoria burst through the front door without knocking. Her face was flushed, her eyes wild. "You did this," she screamed, jabbing her finger at me. "You reported me." I stepped back, shocked. "Reported you? For what?" "Don't play stupid, Carol. The inquiry. The investigation. You're the only one who would have reason to. I didn't report anything." I shouted back. "I don't even know what you're talking about." "Liar." She moved toward me, and I saw genuine rage in her face. "You're trying to destroy me because you're jealous. Because I'm successful and you're just a caregiver playing house, Victoria." Mom's voice cut through the room, sharper than I'd heard in years. We both turned. She was standing in the doorway, one hand braced against the frame, her face pale but her eyes clear. "Stop this," she said. "Both of you. Stop." Then her legs gave out. She crumpled like a puppet with cut strings. I lunged forward, catching her before her head hit the floor. Victoria stood frozen. "Call 911. I shouted. But she just stood there, staring, her face a mask of shock and guilt. I grabbed my phone with one hand while supporting Mom with the other. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely dial. "It's okay, Mom," I whispered. "I've got you. You're going to be okay." The clinic was cold and sterile. Mom was stable, dehydrated, exhausted, her blood pressure dangerously high, but stable. They admitted her for observation. I sat in the waiting room, my hands still trembling, while Victoria paced by the vending machines. Then I saw him. The man from the bench. The one from the pharmacy. He was standing near the nurse's station, speaking quietly with a woman in professional attire, not medical staff, something else. When he looked up, his eyes met mine instantly. He excused himself and walked over. "Miss Sullivan," he said, his voice calm and steady. I stood up slowly. "Who are you?" "My name is Thomas Brennan. I work for the Office of Public Guardian." The words sent ice through my veins. Public Guardian. That meant investigations into vulnerable adults. Into financial abuse. "I think we need to talk," he continued. "But not here. Not yet." Victoria had noticed him now. Her face went even paler. Brennan glanced at her, then back at me. "It started," he said quietly. "The review process. Stay close to your mother. Continue being exactly who you've been. The truth has a way of surfacing." Then he handed me a simple business card and walked away. Victoria rushed over. "What did he say?" she demanded. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw not the confident, successful sister I'd known, but someone cornered and terrified. "He said the truth has a way of surfacing," I replied. Then I walked away, leaving her standing alone in the hallway. Over the next week, relatives started calling. Aunt Pauline, Uncle Marcus, cousins I hadn't heard from in years. All of them said the same thing: you need to apologize to Victoria. You're tearing this family apart. Just make peace. They didn't ask my side. They didn't want to hear about the house, the accounts, the documents signed in secret. They just wanted quiet. They wanted me to be the bigger person, to smooth things over, to pretend everything was fine. She's your sister, Aunt Pauline said. Family is family. Even when family is stealing. I asked quietly. There was a long silence. Then, don't use that word. That's a terrible accusation. But I was done apologizing for seeking truth. I was done keeping peace at the cost of justice. I'm not saying sorry for something I didn't do, I told her. If that makes me the bad guy, so be it. She hung up. 2 days later, I found something slipped under my front door. A handwritten note on plain paper. No signature. Just an address and a time: Municipal Building, 3rd floor, Tuesday 2 p.m. I turned the paper over. Nothing else. I looked up and down the street, but saw no one. The notebook Mom had given me was still hidden in my dresser drawer. I pulled it out and reread that page. Failsafe. I trust the one who asks for nothing. Suddenly, the pieces started clicking together. Mom had known. Long before her mind began to fail, she'd known. And she'd left me a trail. Tuesday arrived cold and grey. The municipal building was downtown, old brick, tall windows, the kind of place that felt heavy with bureaucracy and official weight. I climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor, my heart pounding. A directory pointed toward Adult Protective Services. My stomach clenched. The waiting room was quiet. A few other people sat on hard plastic chairs, staring at their phones or old magazines. I checked in with a receptionist who barely looked up. Someone will be with you shortly, she said. I sat down. The clock on the wall ticked loudly. 5 minutes. 10. 15. Then a door opened, and Thomas Brennan stepped out. No longer in casual clothes. Now he wore a pressed suit, carried a leather folder, looked every bit the official I'd suspected he was. Mr. Sullivan, he said, extending his hand. Thank you for coming. I stood, my legs unsteady. What is this about? Follow me, please. He led me down a hallway lined with frosted glass doors. At the end, he opened one into a small conference room. Files were spread across the table. Documents, dates, signatures, all familiar. I think, Brennan said, gesturing for me to sit, it's time you understood what's been happening. The room felt too small, too quiet. Just me, Brennan, and those files spread across the table like evidence in a courtroom. How long have you known? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Brennan sat across from me, folding his hands. We began monitoring the situation 18 months ago, he said calmly. Long before you noticed anything was wrong. My breath caught. 18 months. But how? Your mother made initial contact with our office 2 years ago, he continued. She was still lucid then, still sharp. She expressed concerns about her assets, about arrangements being made without her full understanding. I felt dizzy. Mom contacted you. She did. And she specifically requested that we observe quietly. She didn't want conflict. She just wanted protection. He opened one of the folders, showing me a handwritten letter in Mom's shaky script. The date at the top was from 2 years ago, before the house transfer, before the account closures, before everything fell apart. Why didn't you stop it sooner? I asked, feeling anger rise. Because we needed to establish a pattern, Brennan explained. Suspicion isn't enough. We needed documented evidence of improper influence, of assets being moved without proper consent or understanding. He slid another file toward me. Inside were photographs of documents I recognized, the house transfer, the account modifications, multiple power of attorney agreements. Your mother knew, Brennan said softly. And she trusted that the child who never asked for control would be the one who deserved it. You deserved her trust, I said quietly. And you lost it. She stared at me, and I saw the moment she realized what she'd truly lost. Not just money or control, but something deeper. Something irreplaceable. Victoria left the meeting without another word. I heard later that she'd broken down in her car, sobbing so hard a security guard had to check on her. Over the following weeks, the legal process continued. Assets were returned. Accounts were reopened in Mom's name with me as co-signer. The house was transferred back, the deed corrected. Victoria lost everything, not just financially, but socially. Relatives who defended her began distancing themselves once the evidence became public. Friends stopped calling. Her reputation, built on an image of success and control, crumbled. I saw her once, a month later, at the grocery store. She looked smaller somehow, older. When our eyes met, she quickly looked away and hurried down another aisle. I didn't follow. What was there to say? But I did feel something unexpected. Sadness. Not for her choices, but for what we could have been as siblings if she'd chosen differently. If she'd asked for help instead of taking control. If she'd trusted Mom's judgment instead of trying to manipulate it. Mom was home now, comfortable, safe. I'd hired a part-time nurse to help so I could have breaks. I'd set up accounts to ensure her money was being used for her care, not hoarded or stolen. And every evening, I sat with her, holding her hand, listening to her stories. You knew all along, didn't you? I asked her one night. She smiled, that same gentle smile from my childhood. I had to protect you, she said. Both of you. But only one of you needed protecting from yourself. Thomas Brennan came by the house one final time. He brought closure, answers, the kind of clarity I'd been desperate for months ago. We sat in Mom's living room, her in her chair by the window, me on the couch, Brennan in the armchair Dad used to occupy. I want you to understand something, Brennan said. What your mother did was extraordinary. Most people in her situation don't plan ahead. They don't protect themselves legally. They just hope it works out. Why did you wait so long? I asked. The question had been burning in me for weeks. Why not intervene sooner? Because we needed to see the pattern of your care, he explained. If we'd stepped in too early, Victoria could have claimed it was all a misunderstanding. We needed to document that you were the one showing up, day after day, without expectation. That's what made the difference. He leaned forward, his expression serious. Kindness without agenda is rare, Carol. Your sister moved with strategy, with plans, with schemes. You moved with compassion. That's why your mother trusted you. That's why the law protected you. What happens to Victoria? I asked. That depends on her, Brennan said. The financial exploitation charge can be reduced if she completes restitution and therapy. She won't go to jail unless she refuses to comply. But her access to your mother is legally restricted now. Mom, who'd been quiet until now, spoke up. I want to see her again, she said softly. Someday. When she's ready. Brennan nodded. That's your choice. Mom looked at me. You'll help me with that, won't you? When the time comes. I took her hand. Of course, Mom. Taking on responsibility I'd never sought was strange. I was suddenly managing an estate, making decisions about investments and care plans, handling paperwork that used to intimidate me. But I had help. Ms. Park, Mom's lawyer, guided me through everything. Brennan checked in regularly. The part-time nurse, a kind woman named Opal, became a trusted ally. I made decisions carefully, always asking myself, what would honor Mom's legacy? What would Dad have wanted? I kept the house exactly as it was. Dad's roses still bloomed in the garden. I hired someone to maintain them. Mom's favorite chair stayed by the window. Her routine remained the same because stability mattered more than change. But I also extended something I hadn't expected I'd be capable of, mercy. When Victoria completed her restitution payments, when her therapist confirmed she was doing the work to understand what she'd done, I allowed supervised visits with Mom. Brief at first. Uncomfortable. But Mom smiled when she saw her, and that mattered. I'm sorry, Victoria said during her third visit, her voice barely audible. I thought I was protecting her. I thought I knew better. You thought you deserved control, I corrected gently. There's a difference. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I didn't forgive her. Not completely. Not yet. But I chose not to hate her. Because hate would poison me more than it would hurt her. And I'd learned something through all of this. Justice doesn't require cruelty. Truth doesn't require vengeance. You can stand firm and still extend a hand. Mom taught me that. Dad taught me that. And now I was living it. The house feels different now. Lighter somehow. Mom sits in her chair every morning, watching birds at the feeder I installed last month. Opal helps with medications and bathing. I handle the paperwork and cooking. Victoria calls once a week, brief and careful, asking how Mom is doing. We're not close. I don't know if we ever will be again. But we're civil. We're trying. That's something. Relatives have quietly changed their tune. Aunt Pauline apologized last month, admitting she'd jumped to conclusions. Uncle Marcus sends cards now, checking on Mom, asking if I need anything. The people who pressured me to keep the peace have come to understand that peace without truth isn't peace at all. It's just pretending. Brennan stopped by yesterday to close the file officially. You did good, he said, shaking my hand. Your mother chose well. After he left, I sat with Mom as the afternoon sun streamed through the windows. I'm proud of you, she said suddenly, her voice clear. I looked at her, surprised. She smiled, patting my hand. I always knew. From the time you were small. You have your father's heart. I felt tears sting my eyes. I learned from the best. We sat in comfortable silence, and I thought about everything that had happened. The fear. The betrayal. The investigation. The revelation. All of it led here, to this quiet moment, this simple peace. Truth didn't need shouting. It needed patience. Justice didn't need cruelty. It needed consistency. And love didn't need grand gestures. It needed showing up, day after day, asking for nothing but offering everything. Mom squeezed my hand once more. And in that moment, I knew we were going to be okay.